Hello and welcome back to the Natural Healers Network TV show. Our next guest is Raelene Weaver, licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome, Raelene. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
I really appreciate you being here, and it's an honor to speak to you and get to know more about your practice, and I'm sure it's going to be great for our viewers as well.
Thank you.
So can you tell us how you got into the field of marriage and family therapy?
Well, actually, it was many years ago when I was in therapy myself. I was going through a divorce and going through a lot of changes, and I remember going into my therapist and saying, you know, I think that I'd like to leave the corporate world and go back into the world of education. I'd like to be a counselor. I have a teaching credential, and I just kind of wanted to get back to working with kids. And we talked about it a little bit, and she said, well, have you ever thought about becoming a therapist? And I was like, no. And she said, I think you'd love it. And so that kind of got the dialogue started, and I started researching it, and lo and behold, I went through the program, and here I am. And I work part-time in private practice, and then I also work part-time with middle school kids. So that part of my vision came true. I really like working with kids.
Okay, great. So what was the draw? I mean, what got you, hooked into it?
I think maybe partly the experience that I was going through myself. I was going through some difficult times, and I think I read every self-help book on the shelf, so I started doing a lot of my own, depth work and really looking at what was going on. And then with therapy, I think that really helped.
Okay. And then what do you find the most rewarding in this work?
Well, I think what's really rewarding for me is when I see progress after working with a client for a while. When we've done some family history and we've looked at relationship patterns and trying to find out, where the next move is, and seeing a shift, seeing that the client is actually putting some pieces together and they're finding that, whoa, that was not working for me. I really need to do something different here. And understanding why they were doing what they were doing can really help them to make a shift and make a change. So I find that very rewarding. I also find it really rewarding, especially working with men, when they start using emotional intelligence. When a man becomes comfortable enough in his own skin and his own feelings and his own emotions so that he can manage that, and so that he can also become more empathetic with others. So I find that very rewarding.
Yes. And for men, a lot of us, it's not quite that easy to do that, right? And
No.
we weren't taught, a lot of us weren't taught how to do that. So having someone to guide us in that process is an incredible gift.
Yeah, I really, it's very rewarding, so
Yes.
I really like it.
Now, what about in your practice? Do you have a specialty area in your work?
Actually, I do. It's men's issues. And this has been a topic that I've been interested in for a long time. I actually did my master's thesis on how repressed emotions in men negatively affect society. So when you have a society that, like you said, doesn't always make it so easy for men to express their emotions or their feelings, well, then they can either internalize those feelings and become depressed, or they can self-medicate with alcohol or drugs, or they can externalize those feelings and, push their negative feelings onto others. So I think really helping men to know that it's okay to have your feelings, to be integrated, I think that's real exciting for me.
That is very exciting. Yes, we need that. All of us do, but men in particular.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I understand that you are starting a support group for men who are in divorce or going through the process of divorce.
I definitely would like to do that. Like I said, I myself have gone through a divorce, so I know how emotionally and financially draining that whole process is. And you just literally have to start over. So here again, it's hard to get men together. It's hard to get that critical mass. But I really think that a man knowing that he's not the only one going through this, that others are going through it, and that there is some support and there are some different paths that you can take, I would love to get that group going.
And I think this is critically important for men because men tend to get isolated and don't have the emotional support, and so offering a group like this would be just fantastic, especially in going through a divorce or a difficult circumstance like that. So I really applaud you, and I hope that that goes well for you.
Great, thank you. I was also going to say, Steve, that I thought of another example of how society doesn't always make it easy or kind of make it available for men to get help. I recently went in for my annual physical exam. I do that every year. And so when I go in, I go to a women's clinic. And they don't have a men's clinic. They have a women's clinic, but they don't have a men's clinic. And they have a questionnaire that I fill out, and it just asks about, my physical health throughout the past year and any changes or whatnot. And one of the questions on that questionnaire is, do you feel safe in your home? Have you ever experienced physical, sexual, or emotional abuse? And I'm so glad that question is there. I mean, it's very important, obviously, for women to have support and to have those resources. But I think that also for men, there should be something like that, because I really think that it's underreported when abuse occurs against a man. And no one really asked that. I asked my husband, I said, does your doctor talk to you about this? And he said, no, it's never come up. So here again, it's just kind of one of those hidden things where I think for men, there can be a lot of shame, saying that they need help or feeling that they might be judged or whatever. So,
yes. Yeah, generally speaking, it's much more difficult for them to come forward and seek help, and for myself too. I've come a long way with that, and I've had to work at just being open to help, being open to that kind of support, and so yeah.
Right.
Now, what about the clients that come to see you? What kind of help are they really looking for? Most of your clients.
Generally it's relational issues. It's either a person has gone through a bad breakup, or they're in a relationship that's not working, or maybe they're considering divorce. So it's generally relational issues that come up. It can also be relational issues between an adult and an aging parent, or an adult and a teenager. So that's usually those people find me.
Okay. And in terms of people who have influenced you in your work, what other therapists have been an influence for you?
Here again, long ago when I was going through my own work and trying to look at my own relationship patterns and my family history, I came upon the work of Harville Hendricks. And if you go to my website, it's Raelene's reading list. He's listed there. But he's written many books, and he has workshops, and he trains therapists to work in his model. But it's really looking at family history, relationship patterns, and how we all unconsciously are trying to get our emotional needs met through our partner that we didn't get met through our parents. So that's just kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So when I started doing going through his books and workbooks, it really helped me. I mean, it dramatically, I could really see something in black and white, like, oh my God. And so I think his work is really good.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I've seen him speak, and I've read some of his books too, and I find it fascinating and a great model to use. The imago therapy,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Very interesting idea that we are, seeking to heal ourselves through our partners, and so forth, and we often attract people who are much like our parents.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that usually the person that we're attracted to, they've been wounded in the same way that we have, but they have coped or adapted in a different way than we have. So it can be complementary, or it can be challenging, because it gets us out of our comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah.
What are some of the myths that exist for people considering therapy?
Well, I've thought about this, and especially working with teenagers a lot. I think it can be hard for young people and adults, but I think there's a little bit of a feeling that, gee, I must be crazy, there must be something really wrong with me, or really crazy, or I'm weak, like we were talking about. I can't figure it out on my own, or I can't make a change here. So I think those are two myths that definitely I think of. I also think of sort of maybe the old-fashioned style of going in and laying on the therapist's couch and not really looking at the therapist or interacting with the therapist. I think maybe some people feel that it's kind of cold and clinical, and I think that as we've discussed, there are lots of different approaches that can be very relational and very warm and connected. So.
So that's what I was going to ask, is about your style of therapy, the way you work. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about that?
I think basically it is relational and humanistic. So it's
And they may not know what that means, so you're going to have
humanistic.
to
It's kind of
describe
like
that a little bit.
unconditional positive regard. Is that you meet the client where they're at. You're on their side. You're trying to learn about them and help them. I really like the idea of helping someone to help themselves. That's really, if that happens, then you've got gold. Because they've discovered what's going on themselves.
So humanistic, believing in them as a human being, relating to them as a human being. And then what about the relational part? Is there's something that you can add about that?
Therapy is unique. It really is a very unique situation in that, we meet with a client for 50 or 60 minutes a week. We can, work with them for a year, 2 years, or it can be short-term therapy. But if it's longer-term therapy, you develop a closeness, a relationship with that client. Now, it's very professional and there are strong boundaries, and we don't go out and have a beer afterwards. I mean, it doesn't work that way. But the time that you spend with a client is very personal. I mean, that's their space, their time. In their lives, there may not be anyone else that listens to them, that sees them the way that we do. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, sometimes they may be telling you things that they don't tell anyone else,
Absolutely.
right? It's that intimate, that kind of close relationship, right?
Yes, yes.
So we have maybe about a minute left. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the viewers to let them know anything more about yourself, your practice?
Well, I was thinking maybe just a couple of things that I have seen change in the area of working with men that we talked a little bit about, is that I think with gender roles, we are seeing in some cases where maybe the man is staying home and taking care of the kids, and it's the wife that's off, to kind of
Right.
climbing the corporate ladder or whatever. And I like that there has been some shift, some couples are able to do that. And then again, I think the shift towards emotional intelligence, that intellectual intelligence is great, and strength and brawn is great, but integrating the emotional intelligence, I'm glad we're seeing more of that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Raelene, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure learning about you and your work, and I know it's been valuable for all the viewers as well. So thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Steve. Appreciate it.
And that's all our show for today for the Natural Healers Network TV. Be sure and tune in to us next time. Thanks again.